Hey everyone, welcome to the Everyday Human podcast. My name is Easton Taverna. Each day I'll share a reflection written by me and inspired by literature, poetry, music, movies, video games, and more. And after that, I'll share a prompt for you to write your own reflection. Together, we'll explore what it means to be human. Every month, we'll walk a new path, taking a look at life, death, the universe, and everything in between. Thanks for coming along. I'm glad you're here. For more, visit eastontaverna.com or join me on Instagram at _everydayhuman. Hello, everyone. It's March 26th. Today's reflection is titled, I See You. This one was inspired by a quote from the illustrated novel / prose graphic novel, whatever you want to call it, A.D. After Death by Scott Snyder and Jeff Lemire. These are two living legends in the comics space. And what a book this is. It's kind of like an experience. So about the format, you have the best of both worlds here, comics and prose. Some pages are fully illustrated and colored and lettered like a comic would be, broken into panels, or beautiful watercolor splashes by Lemire, and other pages are prose or a blend between the two, comics and prose. With an image and then with the text shaped around the image or in a certain way that it's not just a block of text on a page next to an image. It all flows together and blends together very nicely. And so, I guess I should say this was written by Scott with art by Jeff Lemire. And we can't forget the letterer, Steve Wands, I believe it was, who really helps tie the two together. It's a weird, somewhat trippy exploration of life and death. One of a kind for sure. It's set in a world in the future where a cure for death has been found. But years later, after it's been discovered by the main character, Jonah Cook, and actually, as I was preparing for this introduction, I was looking at Jonah Cook and I was like, oh, okay, those initials are JC. I wonder if that was on purpose because this has to do with sort of a cyclical nature, a sort of resurrection, although maybe in a somewhat little bit of a darker, twisted way, maybe. I was just wondering if it was an allusion to Jesus. Maybe not. I'm not sure if Scott intended that. Anyhow, Jonah begins to question everything, which brings him on a wild adventure in which he has to confront his past, eventually his own mortality, and it's just a great book if you haven't read it. I have a beautiful hardcover edition. I think it was originally released in 3 parts or 4? I don't remember, but it's all compiled now. If you can find it in a comic shop or order it online or find it in a bookstore, pick it up. It's a fun one. And this format, this sort of illustrated prose, inspired a few books that I've worked on. One with my friend Sean Daly that is on pause. I still want to get back to it. And then there's another one called Through the Shadow of Titans that was put out a number of years ago, I think back in the COVID days, which is an illustrated novel that the format was inspired by this one, A.D. After Death. So there you go. Another example of someone creating something super cool, inspiring someone else to try their hand at it. Now, Scott, I mentioned the other day when we were looking at the reflection inspired by Day Trippers. I mentioned him briefly. He's an American writer of comics and prose who's most well known for his work on Batman, especially in the DC relaunch, The New 52, and a lot of his creator-owned work as well, American Vampire, The Wake, Witches, Noctera. He does a lot of action-adventure, some horror stuff. He's done and is doing quite a lot. I first read his work when I was in his class all those years ago in my MFA, and it was a great class. I had the choice between this graphic novel writing workshop or another short fiction class. And at that time in the program, I was up to my ears in short fiction workshops. So, I always loved comics and I just went for it. And I'm really glad I did. He was awesome. I met some amazing classmates. And I wouldn't be making comics without taking that class. So, I'm glad I enrolled in that one. And Jeff Lemire is a Canadian comic writer and illustrator / cartoonist. I believe he's from Toronto. I met him a number of years ago at a con in Raleigh, North Carolina, and he was super cool, very friendly. I love his work. I think I first read Sweet Tooth by him and was absolutely blown away. That was another one that we studied in that graphic novel writing workshop. And then I read a bunch of his work in DC comics like Animal Man and Superboy, and then, of course, some other creator-owned stories as well, like Essex County, Black Hammer, Underwater Welder, Gideon Falls, and the list goes on. These are two very prolific comic creators, and they're a dream team, so this book, AD After Death, was a real treat to see them collaborate. And now, here's the quote from that book. "Will it ever go away, you wonder, or will it always be there, that shadow at the edge of things? But even at a young age, you know the answer to that question, don't you? You know it. Of course not, because it's just there, so close to the surface. It's there at school, in the sickening way the cellophane peels off your sandwich, or there, in a shattered vein on your teacher's calf, or there, in the scuffed nose of your action figure, and there, in the weakening grip of the magnets on the board, in the erasures on your homework, in pens running out, in new sneakers that squeak so loudly but go silent by the end of the day, in the small tear in the back seat of the bus, the wisp of stuffing you can't push back in all the way, in the parade of blinking turn signals on the cars lined up at the red light by your house. On and off, ticking in some pattern that means nothing at all. And as the day ends, you feel it deepening, that shadow becoming material, the blackness pooling below your nightlight, the deepest dark of that hallway that separates your room from your parents'. All of it speaks to the same fucking water beneath the crust of things, moving and shifting and waiting, and you wonder, does anyone else feel like this? And here's my reflection. The child stands in the shadows of George Pip's kitchen and positions himself in the corner where the man never gets to cleaning the cobwebs. He watches as George fills his coffee to the brim, and then the child speaks a silent word, and what was once hot and fresh hears the child's voice and then slowly loses its warmth and flavor, and is soon drained to a black stain at the bottom of the mug. A slight smile creeps along Death's face. The child follows George to his room, watching in silence, maybe stifling a laugh, as George sits at his desk and prepares to write in his journal for the day. The man opens to a fresh blank page, crisp and empty, waiting to be filled with whatever thoughts, whatever dreams, hopes, fears, or otherwise spill out of George and onto the page. The child Death speaks again, and the page is filled, no longer capable of being written on. This page will soon be forgotten along with the words inhabiting it. And it is time for George to move on. Death follows George to his kid's room. George peeks in. She's still sleeping, and he cannot fathom how she has aged so quickly. The expansion of cells, clothes no longer fitting, teeth falling out, hair changing color. And in his mind, Death shows him the wrinkles and pains to come. The sicknesses too, and Death tells George without malice that she, his daughter, will one day be placed in the ground. George dresses in a rush, grains of sand falling all around him, landing in small piles he stumbles through as he runs to his car, telling himself he needs to wake up earlier or stop hitting the snooze button so many times. He turns the engine, glances at the gas, and sees a quarter of a tank. Didn't he just fill it up? When was that? How quickly the thirsty engine drinks it and shits it out into the air until the tank runs dry. Nothing can escape it, because how can you escape something that is inevitable? Something that simply was, is, and always will be. Why would George try? Why would any of us try? Whether you see it or not, acknowledge it or not, Death walks beside you always. But the child is nothing to be feared. It is inherent in all that exists. It is a part of you just as much as life is. It is everywhere, the end of something. The short and precious existences of the living, and the inanimate too, even the seconds of the universe, some might say God itself, are ticking away toward an end. So instead of running from or fearing it, embrace it, love it. And next time you come across a shadowed corner or come upon a near empty gas tank, a filled up journal, or a drained coffee mug. Look directly at it and wave. And then say, I see you. And there ends today's reflection. So as we're approaching 10 minutes of this episode, I guess I had a lot to say today. Let's get right to the reflection question. So, in your journal, on your pile of napkins, or looking at your reflection window, or while you're taking a reflection walk, consider the following question, and either just think about it or write your thoughts down. Ask yourself this: where have I seen death recently? Did I turn and run? Did I even realize it was there? All right, and that's it for today, March 26th. I'll be back tomorrow, March 27th, with another reflection. Have a good one, and take care.